And welcome, everybody, to our Points of the Paint podcast as we cover West Coast Conference basketball. Dave Flemming, Sean Farnham. We are presented by Hell of a Good Dip.
Hell of a Good Dip.
Yeah, that's our favorite. We got lots to talk about this week, a lot, including two outstanding guests. Gary Parrish, CBS Sports Insider, who covers college hoops as close as just about anybody. We're going to talk to Gary about this conference, the Zags, the Gales, what happened over the weekend. We have Augustas Marčiulionis, speaking of what happened over the weekend, the reigning player of the year, an amazing victory for his St. Mary's team with a lot of implications that I want to ask Sean about here shortly. And look, we have upcoming games that are important to look forward to, lots of stuff to get to. I do want to start and dedicate 1 minute, 30 seconds, and say about my partner. Over the years, look, people sometimes tease us. We talk about the Farnham flatbread. This thing got named after you years ago in Spokane at the Davenport Hotel. And yeah, we do talk about it a lot, and we have had a lot of laughs over the years. It has turned into something different. And you and I were up there this weekend, and I just want to give you public credit for this. In one happy hour night, one couple hour period at a hotel bar in Spokane, Washington, Sean raised $30,000 for Coaches versus Cancer this weekend. And so I'm giving you credit for turning what is kind of a silly, funny thing that we've laughed about for a lot of years into something really, really good. And kudos to you for what you did on Friday night.
Well, I appreciate you being there. Like, it was great having you there. You were there the whole time. It's fun. Like, to me, it's about connecting, right? Like, you and I, for better, for worse, we are connected with this conference and the communities within this conference. And Spokane cares a lot about their basketball team. That's an understatement. But they subsequently have learned to care about us. And to me, what amazes me is just the unbelievable generosity of local community members. There was a local law firm that came there and gave me a box with a bow on it, and I had no idea what was in it. They had a check for $2,500. I mean, that generosity cannot be, taken for granted by any stretch of the imagination. And so I'm incredibly grateful for everybody that understands why I got started in Coaches versus Cancer, because my father-in-law, he passed away in 2018. And to be able to hold an event like that, it's just, I enjoy it. It's tiring, but I enjoy it. And it's always fun, and I look forward to the next time we do it for sure.
Yeah. We saw something pretty remarkable, didn't we?
We did.
And I look, we can break down the game a little bit too, because there were some really interesting aspects of the game. Mikey Lewis's performance, Harry Wessel's performance, some sort of under the radar St. Mary's players who made that win possible. I wanted to start with you, like, big picture, because to me, I don't know if you agree with me, this felt different. For many, many years, you and I have known that St. Mary's can beat and often does beat Gonzaga. But this is the first time in 15 years of you and me doing this that I can remember thinking these two programs now are on equal footing in every way. Like, there is no separation. And I think there was a distinction before. Like, St. Mary's would get them and they would get a win and whatnot. It feels different to me now. Does it feel different to you?
It does. Based on the fact that leading wire to wire again. I mean, it's the same as it was in Moraga. They went back and forth a little bit there in Moraga, and Gonzaga took a lead in the second half, and then they gave it back up. But they never got a lead on their home floor on senior day in a game that they desperately needed. And I think that part of the reason why you feel that, Dave, is because for so many years when you looked at the Zags roster, there were pros on it. Whether it was Sabonis, whether it was, Rui Hachimura, whether it was Chet Holmgren, Jalen Suggs. I mean, like, the list goes on and on. Kelly Olynyk's of the world. Like, there were pros. This year's roster feels a little bit different for Gonzaga. And when you look at the two rosters, they look very complementary of one another. And so subsequently, that's why we've had two really fun, enjoyable games to call in this series so far this year. But it's also why St. Mary's has been able to find a way to win both the games. And, like, there's moments that in the past when you and I have called these games where you looked at me, and you even said it on air, I believe. It was 55-53, and you looked at me and said, I feel like the place is going to explode here. And that was an indication that at that time, you thought that Gonzaga was about to go on a little bit of a run, because guess why? We've seen those runs for 15-plus years together in that gym. And we were just, it kind of felt like it, and I agreed with you. It was sensing like it was going in that direction. And then Mikey Lewis checked in the game and went on a 7-0 run in 2 possessions. And you were like, oh, never mind. And that closer mentality, those closer moments, never allowed the Zags to do what the Zags do. And they still have done that this year. Like, go back to the LMU game at home. They were losing in the second half. They go on a 20-2 run. Game was over. That's what they do in that building. They didn't do that this time. And to me, it was about doing what you do well and doing it better than your opponent expected you to. And that's what St. Mary's did. They were more physical. They rebounded better, in particular at the offensive glass. They kept the game at their tempo, their pace. They limited their turnovers. They didn't have self-inflicted wounds. They played very good defense. You mentioned Wessels. His defense was outstanding on Ike. Ike got a lot of his points against Mitchell Saxon, struggled to get some of his points against Harry Wessels. Like, Luke Barrett, 0 for 10, comes in, hits his first 3. Hit a big 3 in the second half as well. Like, they just play to who they are. It's what they do. And it may not be fancy, and it may not be appealing to the eye all the time, and it may not be the sexiest style of play in college basketball, but man, it's good. And they win. And those guys genuinely celebrate and care for each other. They are a team. They are a true team. And to me, that's what stood out.
I think you put your finger on it. I do. Because you can rattle off all the accomplishments of this particular St. Mary's team. Okay, that's their second consecutive outright conference title. That hasn't happened in this league since Pepperdine in 1992. They've won 4 of 5 overall against the Zags. They won back-to-back games in Spokane in back-to-back years for the first time in 35 years as a program. All those stuff, you can say all that stuff and it's amazing. But I think the thing you said almost right when I first asked you, I bet if you added it up, these two teams have played 80 minutes head-to-head now this season. I bet the Zags have led for 3 minutes out of 80. And it just feels different to me. It feels like, man, this was not a fluke. This was not a team that went up there and stole a win in Spokane, and wow, they got out of there with a victory. It did not feel like that at all to me.
No, and Mikey Lewis, I know we mentioned like big picture, but Mikey Lewis has won both these games.
Yeah.
And you and I were there, and he had 6 points in only 7 minutes in the first half. We talked about it at halftime. And about 14:30 on the clock, I looked up, and Mikey Lewis had not played a single minute. And I started on air. I said, Mikey Lewis needs to get in the game because the Gales offense was struggling. Now, when I said that, I didn't expect him to go for 11 points in a very short period of time. But, man, he is different. Like, he's everything Aiden Mahaney was. In the game where he had 17 points at home, and you remember that game in the second half, and everybody was like, oh, my gosh, Aiden Mahaney, he could be a pro, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm telling you, this Mikey Lewis kid's something different. And for a team that at times needs an injection of life at the offensive end, Mikey Lewis is built differently than everybody else that's on that roster. And that's a good thing. They need him to be different. They need him to have the moxie. I mean, he's hitting shots and looking at the kennel and smiling as he's going down the floor, spinning around after he takes his 3. Like, I mean, he is on one, and he has such a swagger and brashness about how he approaches the game. Like, I think that St. Mary's has a legitimate chance of being a second weekend team. And it's in large part because Mikey Lewis is going to hit some shots in a big moment in an NCAA tournament game, and everybody's going to realize how talented this freshman is. He was number 83 by Paul Biancardi in the top 100. I can't name 83 better freshmen in the country than Mikey Lewis. There's better freshmen, but there's not 83 of them. I'll promise you that.
No. And there is a good parallel to that Mahaney game from a couple years ago where he hits these wild shots, hits a 3, switches to his left hand, banks one in high off the glass. The place is going nuts. This wasn't exactly that, but those baskets that he hit were just as big. And he needs to play, and he needs to play more, probably. And you and I think, did a pretty good job of documenting on Saturday. He's not yet a perfect player. He has stuff he needs to get better at. He's not a perfect defensive player. He's not a perfect ball handler. He had a couple turnovers. I don't care. They are a better team on offense by a big factor when he's out there. They are.
Yep. And again, that's not a slap against Jordan Ross or anything like that. Like, by the way, I thought a great decision late in the game once the lead was built up, knowing you needed defense, knowing you needed better ball security, you flip it back and you went to Jordan Ross. That's the versatility that Randy Bennett has to play with right now on this roster. Listen, there's a lot of ways you can slice it up. St. Mary's is literally one game away from being perfect in the strongest WCC that we've seen in a very, very, very long time. That is an incredible statement. At the start of the season, nobody wanted to give them credit because the start of their schedule was pretty light. Then they went through like an 8-game gauntlet, and they dropped only one.
And by the way, not to interrupt you, that one, how many minutes did Mikey Lewis play in that game? Like
5.
I mean, seriously.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
And that was the San Francisco game. And it was a game that really, realistically, they probably felt like they should have won that game. Now, I think San Francisco took that game from them. I think Chris Gerlofson's team has been really consistent throughout the course of the year, and that was one that they wanted and they were knocking on the door waiting for years, and they took it from them. But that's one game over the course of the conference season that they had their slip up. And they've been outstanding in every other game throughout the course. They've responded down double digits at Washington State. Go ahead and get a win. Like, this team is tough. It's resilient, and it doesn't back down. And to be able to celebrate on that court and in that locker room to get the trophy and know that you're not playing until Monday night. I mean, that's the only thing that we've got decided going into Vegas right now is the number 1 overall seed, and we're going in the final week of conference play. Wild.
Yeah. It is. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to do that at the end of the show, looking ahead to the final week of the regular season, all the implications for conference.
Dave, are they your hell of a good team of the week?
They are my unofficial, not officially sponsored Dave Flemming hell of a good team of the week. Congratulations to the St. Mary's Gales. I have to admit.
Caveat, though, Santa Clara.
It gave me a little pause. I thought for a minute, what am I overlooking? The Broncos, who made 23 3-pointers at Pullman on Saturday, a WCC single game record, tying the most in the history of Division I by a road team. The most 3-pointers in the history of D1 by a road team, Santa Clara at Washington State on Saturday.
And they shot 61%. It wasn't like it was just, catch and chuck all game long. I mean, it kind of was, but they were making all of them. They didn't miss 61%.
Yeah, incredible.
That many 3-point shots, it's unbelievable.
And they get the Hags on Tuesday, by the way.
I can't wait for our close of the show when we can talk about, because we talk so much about St. Mary's here. Now what's left for Gonzaga? What does this week mean? Not only for the Zags, but for Las Vegas. And a friendly reminder for all of our loyal listeners, and we know that there's millions, and I mean millions.
Everywhere we go now, we're just deluged by podcast listeners. Anyway, go ahead.
But Vegas matters. This tournament, I think, is going to be as wild and as unpredictable as we've ever seen. And there is a chance the Zags will be playing on Sunday. There's a chance. It needs to be wild in the Orleans Arena. It needs to be sold out. It needs to be popping. Students need to come on down and understand how good Vegas is.
Let's take our break. When we come back, we will be joined by Gary Parrish. Then we'll have Augustas Marčiulionis on. Points of the Paint podcast. We'll be back right after this. All right, welcome back to our Points of the Paint podcast, presented by Hell of a Good Dip, Dave Flemming, Sean Farnham, and happy to have our first guest of the podcast tonight. He's a CBS Sports insider, covers college basketball, does an excellent job in doing that. Gary Parrish, welcome to the show, Gary.
It's my pleasure. How you guys doing?
We're good. We're good. Sean and I, over the weekend, we're up in Spokane for a very big game in this conference, and I thought we would start there. What was your reaction to St. Mary's beating the Zags again, clinching the West Coast Conference regular season title, and doing it inside the kennel?
Well, the last part is the most surprising part. Like, I'm not surprised that St. Mary's is your WCC champs. They've been excellent pretty much all season. I've had them ranked in my top 25 and 1 for much of the past week, and they'll obviously stay there. But to go into the kennel and never trail, like literally not for a second, is just not something that happens to Gonzaga, regardless of the opponent. I mean, you could take the biggest brands in the sport and take them there, and they don't do that. And so I think it's the latest indication that this Zags team is not quite what maybe most of the previous ones were. As you guys know, 9 straight Sweet 16s. That's incredible. But if you're a Zags fan who, is sort of down right now because you're not used to having 8 losses on February 23rd, because you're not used to looking up at anybody in your conference standings, because you're not used to getting swept by a conference foe, you're not used to getting beat from start to finish in your home arena, keep this in mind. They have lost a lot relative to what they normally do. It's all close losses. It's all right there. 8 losses, never by more than 8 points. 8 losses by a combined 34 points. Average margin of victory, 4.3. So if you're wondering, like, why are the predictive metrics still in love with Gonzaga? That's part of it. They have lost a lot and haven't, added signature win after signature win like they sometimes do. But all those close losses don't really damage you too much in the predictive metrics, and that's why their rankings in those are higher than what you're going to see if you look at any sort of bracketology.
Yeah, stick with St. Mary's for a second, though, because I think that, giving them a little bit more of their flowers for what they've done. And for a small program in Moraga that plays in a really small gym and doesn't have $7 million in NIL money, what kind of statement does this make about the quality of coaching job that Randy Bennett has done this year?
Sean, I don't know if you would agree with this, but I think you might, given the way you just framed this. I would nominate Randy Bennett someday for the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame based on what he's been able to do at St. Mary's. I know that people don't typically attach those types of things to guys unless they go to a Final Four, win a national championship. But consistency, longevity, and to do it at that place, and this always becomes a complicated conversation because you don't want to, discount the place too much. But I know a lot of guys that could win at Kentucky. I know a lot of guys that could win at North Carolina. I know a lot of guys that could win at Kansas. I don't know if anybody else could do what Randy has done at St. Mary's as consistently as he's done it. Frankly, it is unlikely that you will ever see 2 men this successful at a Gonzaga and a St. Mary's and stay there for as long as they've stayed there. But that's the key. And I really do think the trick is St. Mary's. There is nothing, and I say this as respectfully as I can say it, there is nothing that suggests St. Mary's should be as good as it has been consistently for all these years. And the reason it's been that is because of Randy Bennett. You mentioned it, like they lose an NBA player. They lose guys to the transfer portal. You don't know what it's going to be, but you can assume it's going to be good because it almost always is. And now it's better than it usually is. It's they're operating at a really high level, and the guy on the sideline is the main reason, obviously.
Gary, to your point, I mean, you're talking about these 2 programs, both of them top 4 winning percentages in college basketball over the last 10 years. I mean, I don't know how many people nationally understand. St. Mary's has a better winning percentage in the last 10 years than the Duke Blue Devils. Like, it is, and I grew up in the Bay Area, so I can say that St. Mary's wasn't that program ever. And when I was an assistant coach at Pepperdine under Jan Van Bredikoff, I was given 1 scout in league play. St. Mary's, because they were dead last in the conference. And that was in 2000, and the 2000-2001 season. Randy Bennett comes in the next year. And since that point in time, boy, it has just changed. And it's whether it's the Australian pipeline, the creativity, too, in the recruiting. Whether it's Australia, which is well documented. Now it seems to be like this growing Lithuanian pipeline that they've got going on now because of Augustas Marčiulionis. But then you go out and you get a really good top 100 kid like Mikey Lewis, who they don't win either one of these games against Gonzaga without Mikey Lewis being out on the floor.
You have to be creative, and they have been. And, as we say in studio, like, you're going to need the pronunciation chart before you start diving into the game. But once you get it, I mean, that's a quality basketball team. And I tell you, you mentioned St. Mary's is, as recently as this century, like, was non-existent. I can remember when I was in college. You guys can look up the exact date, but it was early. I went to school at the University of Memphis, and the Zags came in. Now, keep in mind, we didn't know they were the Zags. We didn't know anything. It was just this. It was basically like a game in a preseason tournament that you're just supposed to win so you can then go to wherever they were going next. And they came in and beat Memphis badly. And that was the beginning of Gonzaga.
Yep.
In November, December, nobody knew. I, as somebody who was in college and a basketball fan, was unfamiliar with this school. And by March, it was like, I think that's when they made their first tournament run. And it's taken off since then. So to watch both of these programs become what they become is like awesome. And it's a testament to, I know it started before Mark at Gonzaga, but it's mostly Mark. And at St. Mary's, it's Randy. Like, I'll take it this far. The WCC right now has two guys who I would comfortably put in the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame someday, and it's Mark Few and Randy Bennett.
That is pretty cool. Talking to Gary Parrish from CBS Sports for a few more minutes. So you mentioned Gonzaga. The difference really in the last few years between the two programs has largely been Gonzaga's ability to go deep into the tournament over and over again, and St. Mary's inability to do that. And there are lots of reasons for that. Some unlucky injury stuff. Last year, Josh Jefferson gets hurt and doesn't play in the tournament. That definitely cost him at least a win, maybe a couple more. What about this version of the Gales, Gary? Can this St. Mary's team be the one that breaks through and makes a bit of a deeper run?
Yes, and I would say that because, I mean, they're 25-4. They are your WCC champs. They just swept Gonzaga. They're 18th at Ken Pom. They're top 10 in adjusted defensive efficiency. Offense can come and go, and in a single elimination tournament, that can get scary because, like, suddenly you're the best offensive team in the country, but you can't make a three-point shot, and you take 48% of your three-point attempts or of your field goal attempts from beyond the arc. Now you got a problem. The defense stuff is as they say, the cliches are cliches for a reason. Defense travels, defense is there. That's going to be there. They're going to be difficult to score on no matter who they're playing. So some of it will come down to matchups. Obviously, you get into a game with a SEC team with a bunch of big athletes, and that can be problematic. But this is a rock-solid, well-coached basketball team. And if you told me right now they were in the Sweet 16, in the Elite Eight, I don't want to get hyperbolic with you, but like if you told me right now they were in the Sweet 16, that's not crazy to me. They register that way in most of the computers.
I mean, you look at their overall total rebounding percentages, top 10 in the country. Their offensive rebounding percentage is, even better. They rebound 39% of their misses. And unlike a lot of other teams that they've had, this team has three guys that are 6'10" or above. And I thought when they played the Gonzaga on Saturday, the matchup of Harry Wessels off the bench and his thickness and his size caused Graham Ike more problems than Mitchell Saxon did. And so like that, you give versatility, and then you have Morauskas that can shoot the three, and then just the pieces just seem to kind of fit. It's a fun team to watch. Let's look at the other side on Gonzaga because we touched on the Zags a little bit. This team overall has not shot the three to the level in which a lot of people thought they were going to shoot. How much is that a problem for Gonzaga in your eyes in making a tournament run?
Well, the numbers are the numbers. They're only shooting 35% from three, and they don't take a lot of them, and that's just not a modern style of basketball. To me, the interesting thing about this is if you just start looking and comparing it to last season's team, in terms of the offensive efficiency numbers and the defensive efficiency numbers, it's not that different. They were top 10 in offense and top 50-ish in defense last year, and they're top 10 in offense and top 50-ish in defense right now. I really do, and nobody wants to hear this, particularly Gonzaga fans who are frustrated by the 8 losses and the lack of a conference championship. But it's really just a shot here, a stop there. I mean, you flip let's just say you flip half of these close games into wins. And given the margin of victory, it's 8 losses by roughly 4 points. I mean, that's 2 shots, 2 stops. We got a different outcome. Flip 4 of them, and I know this isn't the way basketball's play, but we're talking about a 25-4 team that is ranked in the teens, and none of this is a conversation we're having. Like you get them in the tournament, they'll be favored against a better seeded team based on the computer numbers. And so just can't screw up and lose too many more games to where you really shove yourself in a weird situation. But that's a team that all the computers suggest that they're still capable of performing at a high level. They just haven't done it in the games they need to.
Really good stuff. Hey, Gary, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
You guys are awesome. Thank you for asking me.
Gary Parrish. When we come back, the reigning WCC Player of the Year just had another big weekend. Augustas Marčiulionis of St. Mary's joins us right after this. Welcome back to our Points of the Paint podcast. Dave Flemming, Sean Farnham, presented by a hell of a good dip. And gosh, we've been waiting all season to talk to our next guest, Augustas Marčiulionis, who is the reigning West Coast Conference Player of the Year and might be having an even better 2024-25 season, coming off an incredible weekend up in Spokane. The Gales take down the Zags. Really nice of you to join us. Augustas, I got to start by asking, you clinched a conference title in the kennel. What was the celebration like, whether in the locker room, on the plane ride home? What was it like after that win?
It was crazy as you would expect. I mean, going into that game, we didn't really think about like, oh, we can win the title. Like, we kind of just focused on the game, on Gonzaga, and we didn't really have those thoughts. But yeah, obviously after we won, we go to the locker room, the shirts are ready, the hats are ready, everybody's in a good mood. Polis was the only guy that had a speaker, so they had to endure his music. But I mean, me and Polis, we were having a good time in the locker room, but rest of the guys weren't the big fan of the music we were playing. But yeah, it was just like great vibes. Everybody's happy. And yeah, to do that in Kennel, like it's in Spokane, and it's amazing.
What's that like? Lithuanian party music? What's Polis's playlist?
I don't even know how to explain it, but it's like, yeah, I don't think he was playing Lithuanian songs, but it was like songs that not a lot of like people would like. It's more like European style. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it, but I mean, I was enjoying it.
There were two of you at least that were really happy with it.
Yeah, at least two guys in the locker room were really enjoying it. So,
all right. So I want to turn back so that we have a full appreciation for where we're currently at. This is a team that a year ago obviously won the outright championship. You were a huge part of it. It's why you were the WCC Player of the Year. The season ends. There were some people questioning what this team was going to look like this year. How did you, as a leader of this team, set the tone last summer to make sure that what we're seeing right now actually could happen?
well, it's me and the 8 other guys that were returning, and it was kind of our mindset during spring and summer that, hey, like, we know that our coaching staff, they're going to do a great job at like finding the pieces that we're missing. So for example, with like Polis or Ashton, and we were just focusing us 9 guys to lay just a really good like groundwork for the other guys, that and when they would come in, that they know, like, they see the standard that we're setting in spring and summer, and we were doing our job. Coaches did a really good job in the getting those pieces, and at the end of the day, we had guys that just like didn't get a chance to prove how well they can play, like Luke, Jordan. Like we know in a team that they could play and they could step up. I mean, obviously it's difficult to see that when you're not in the process, training and stuff, practices. But I mean, all of us knew that, hey, Luke is gonna do his thing. He's gonna play like he's playing right now. Same with Jordan, that he would make that big jump, and then he did. And yeah, and the rest of it is just like, yeah, I think we got a really good additions. We worked really hard spring, summer, and we set the standard pretty high. And now we see the results.
Augustas, I don't know if everybody knew he was talented, but a guy you didn't mention there, Mikey Lewis, has come in, and gosh, was that amazing last weekend in Spokane. I mean, that was pretty remarkable. What were your thoughts about the way the young guy performed in the kennel?
I mean, I was just looking for him for 40 minutes as a point guard. I mean, this guy has that confidence. Like, you can't really teach the confidence. He has the, I don't know, the swagger. I don't know what the exact word I should use, but like you just feel it. Like when he's on the court, he just wants to compete to win, and he's the guy that can take the ball and like doesn't matter. We're up 1, down 2, 10 seconds left. Like he will want to take that shot and make that shot. So yeah, I mean, having a guy like him, a guy who can just take the ball and create his own shot at any time he really wants and the team needs is just an unbelievable asset to our team. And yeah, he was playing really, really good on Saturday, and he was the main reason why we won, why in that second half we kind of separated.
Let's talk a little bit about you in particular. We can talk about your distribution and your assists. That's great. When we talk to opposing coaches, they say you dig on the post better than any player that they've ever gone against. Like where does that, I know that's part of what Randy wants you to do, and he's asking you to do it. But what makes you so good at pinching down on the post and being a disruptor there? There was a key moment even in the game on Saturday where you got a deflection on a Ryan Nembhard pass, slid to your knees, and called a timeout on the corner in the floor. And I said during the call, I said, this might be a one-possession game, and that might be the one possession that we look back on and say that won the game. But you play with that sense of urgency every single time the ball goes down to the block. How do you do it?
I mean, part of it is that's what our coaches want, to be aggressive, to help our bigs, to rake that ball whenever we can. It's also about the timing. You have to kind of like have a feel when the big guy bounces. You have to like time it well. And it's also, I would say, like, my dad, like, since I was like 10 or 12, he like always used to tell me that like hands and arms like are as important playing defense as the feet are. So I remember, like, yeah, from very young days, like he would like always get that in my head, just like use your hands, like disrupt, like get a rake, just, I don't know, like even not like hand check, but like just use your hands as a tool to help you on defense. So I would say a lot of things. It just, yeah, that's what coaches want to do, and you just kind of learn it.
Your dad, was he? I mean, we've all kind of assumed, yeah, of course, that's who you learn the game from. Was he as influential for you growing up, learning about basketball as we have always assumed he was?
Yeah, he was always helping me, and yeah, he was like later on he was just making sure that I'm on the right path. So he didn't really like, I don't know. Sometimes we do go to the gym, but it was more like he's just like making sure I'm on the right track with the like right around right people, and yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. It doesn't have to meddle with the individual coaching stuff so much as just sort of be a support figure for you. I think you've been a support figure for Polis, and you mentioned him off the top. It's his first year in Moraga. You've been there a long time. Were you the reason he came to St. Mary's?
I felt like he was the perfect fit for us, but I also think that St. Mary's teaches all the things that he needs in order to make that next jump to go to the NBA. And I was like even telling him, like, I'm telling you as a friend, not as a guy from St. Mary's, but I'm telling you as a friend, like what they teach here, like it's really gonna help you. You're gonna become more consistent. You're gonna be better defender. Your composure is gonna get better. Like all the things that I felt like he kind of needed to improve on as a player. I said, like, this is like it works both ways. Like we need you, but I think you also really need to spend a couple of years with Randy Bennett. So it worked out perfectly fine.
There's been a serious question that I've been wanting to ask you because I've heard the rumors while I've been up there. I believe that I was told that part of wanting to get him to come to Moraga with you is that you're tired of the Australian national anthem and you're really trying to switch the Gales into a Lithuanian institute of basketball. Is that true? Is that what the end goal is for you, your lasting legacy?
Yeah, I mean, coaches were telling that they can't handle the Australian national anthem, and we did a vote, and they think Lithuanian one sounds better, but but yeah, I mean, it would be really cool to leave a legacy like that, and yeah,
I mean,
like,
what is the reaction in Lithuania? I mean, you got two players from Lithuania that are starring in college basketball right now on a team that has accomplished amazing things during your tenure, but are accomplishing things this year that have never been done in this program. And Lithuanian stars are the big part of it.
yeah, I mean, That's the problem. Like we Lithuanians, we love basketball, but like college basketball is something that not a lot of people really understand, and how fun it is, how competitive it is, you know. But yeah, but we do get a lot of support from Lithuania, and when those shirts came out, like everybody was hitting me up, like, hey, can you bring some back home? And then yeah, friends were texting. So yeah, it's cool. It's really cool.
Do people watch back home? Like when Sean and I call your games, do people watch those games?
I mean, I know that my brother wakes up every morning at 5 or 7 a.m. and he watches. So I know there's one person, but I mean, it probably depends. Depends on the time. The time difference is not very good. Like if we have 7 p.m. game, it's 5 a.m. in Lithuania. And if it's 5 p.m., it's 3 a.m. there. So it's really difficult. But I feel like when they're like championship games, Gonzaga games, March Madness, then yeah, people watch that.
So look, you got a lot more games to play. I'm not asking you about that, but when you look back on what St. Mary's and Randy have meant to you, what has this program been for you in your basketball journey?
Well, it made me who I am right now, and I mean, yeah, like I owe like a lot of it to them, and yeah, like coming first year, I didn't know what was going on at all. Like obviously, like you're far away from home, you're thinking about like just like leaving everything, going back home, and just like there's a lot of things happening. But I feel like where Coach Bennett is really good at is just like giving you a perspective, and like making sure that everything like here is good, and you're on the right track, and how you think, how you approach things, and like yeah, like especially like basketball wise, yes, I did improve a lot, but like mostly I would say it's like mentally, like toughness, and how you approach things, and how you think in the future, how you think about the season, how like you think about your teammates, like all of those things. I feel like it just completely like switched how I like mentally approach things and do things. So yeah, like I owe coaching staff and Coach Bennett a lot.
Yeah, well, you'll be seeing the two of us more. You're not getting rid of us here with this conversation, but I think I speak for Sean. Like we have really enjoyed watching you play over these last few years. Really
Thank
have.
you. Thank you.
So we appreciate your time. Congratulations on
Vegas. We'll see you in Vegas. Hey, get some students there. I mean, what else do you guys need to do to get the? I mean, you win back-to-back champ. Can you please get a bus of students from Moraga to come down to Vegas and make a lot of noise for you guys? You guys deserve it. That student section needs to show up in Vegas and show out for you guys. You guys deserve it, man.
Thank you. No, we'll figure that out. Thank you. Yeah, we'll try.
because he needed something else to worry about here over the next few weeks.
He's the leader of the whole campus.
Augustas Marčiulionis, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, one last segment when we come back right after this. All right, welcome back. Our final segment, Points of the Paint podcast, presented by a hell of a good dip. Dave Flemming, Sean Farnham. Really nice of Gary Parrish and Augustas Marčiulionis to join us. Augustas he's impressive, isn't he?
He is. I mean, he is everything you want to have in the leader of a team. And him and Luke Barrett and Mitchell Saxon deserve a ton of credit for how they got this group together and how they've competed, how they continue. Like, people talk about culture all the time, Dave. Culture's not from the coaches. The coaches can try to determine what the culture is going to be, but the culture is established by the players. And it's the players' responsibility to make sure that whatever the identity of that program continues to live on. And there's been incredible leadership during this run for Randy Bennett, but he's empowered those guys to be the leaders. And this year's trio has certainly carried that on and is leaving a lasting legacy in Moraga.
Yeah, well said. Next week we'll do our regular season awards. You and I will. Well, I mean, I just decided that, but maybe we will. I was leaning for most of this year. I just saw Ryan Nembhard was having such a spectacular year. I thought, whoever wins the regular season, it was going to be hard for me to not think that Ryan was the player of the year in this conference. I think I've changed my mind.
Is that a tease?
It's a tease. We still have games to go, but I think we might have a back-to-back winner.
Right.
He's having an amazing year again. All right, you said it in our first segment. You couldn't wait till the end of the show because you wanted to talk about the Zags, the team that came out on the wrong end on Saturday when we were there inside the kennel, and what this week means for them. Well, let's just start with what this week is for the Zags. Tuesday night, they play at Santa Clara. They're actually going to fly home because it's a Tuesday-Saturday split, and then come back to the Bay Area for a Saturday game at the Chase Center against San Francisco, which, by the way, as we speak right now, is tied with the Zags for second place. Both teams are 12-4 in conference play. What does that final week mean for Mark Few's team?
Well, first and foremost, from a larger NCAA tournament opportunity, these are 2 quad one games. And I think that's really impressive. It speaks to what you and I have been talking about all season long. The depth and the quality of this conference this year is unlike anything we've seen in recent years. That you can have that literally the Zags will play 3 consecutive quad one games to end their season, only one of them being against St. Mary's. That says a lot about what Herb and Chris Gerlofson have done, and how they've set this table up for this year. So that's number one. And to Gary Parrish's point, you win both these games this week, all of a sudden now you feel real different, and those quad one wins look a little bit different on Selection Sunday, and you're going into the WCC tournament as a 2 seed, which means you get to bye all the way to Monday. They drop 1, they drop 2. I mean, either way, I think they're going to end up playing on Sunday because just of how good San Francisco's positioned itself. Now, San Francisco's got to take care of business. This is a really big week for them. We got the text from the athletic department asking us, can you shoot a video telling Don's fans to show up? It's a really big game, and it's a really big game for both of these 2 teams in Santa Clara and San Francisco equally to try to position itself better in the West Coast Conference tournament and maybe give itself a chance to be 40 minutes away from playing for 40 minutes to get an NCAA tournament bid. I mean, that's the reality of Champ Week. We can look at it in a variety of ways. Like San Francisco's still on the radar screen of a lot of bracketologists right now. A sweep this week, is that enough to push them all the way in the field? You get that, and you get into the finals of the WCC, and you pick up a couple quad one victories in the way. Man, now that changes the dialogue, and now you're watching everybody else and seeing what other bubbles are going to burst across the country. I think that this is going to be as an important of a week that we've seen for Gonzaga basketball in the final week of the WCC in years. I can't remember a final week that had this much importance on it for that program in particular.
Yeah, and I think you're right to put San Francisco there too. It is a huge week for them. And Santa Clara, and you and I will do a preview of the conference tournament, and we'll talk about that. Santa Clara could go to Vegas and win every game and play their way in. San Francisco has a scenario out there where they could be selected if they play really well this week and then in Las Vegas. And they go to Corvallis on Wednesday before. You can't look ahead. You can't get too excited about that Gonzaga game. Oregon State is good. They're good at home. San Francisco, that's a huge, huge game on Wednesday for the Dons.
Dave, Oregon State is good enough to win the WCC tournament. They could lose their first game on a Sunday. They could roll out and pull an Oregon State type run of 2021 and win this thing. They really can, because they do have some size. They have players. Michael Ortai is such a phenomenal talent and has played so well down the stretch. I think that this is just I'm really excited. This is like, no longer can we say we're in the dog days of the college basketball season. We are in the stretch run to March Madness. And to me, that's what excites me more than anything. And going back to my point on like the depth of this conference, there are 4 conferences in the country with multiple teams in the top 20 of the net. The SEC, the Big 12, the Big 10, and the WCC. That's it. That's it. That's also, by the way, why I think that the bracketologists are way off on St. Mary's. I think St. Mary's is a 5 seed. St. Mary's is a 5 seed. If you're telling me that you look at the top of this conference in the number of quad one victories that they have, how they've performed in their quad one and quad two games, their road record overall this year, I think the Gales, before they even get off the bus in Las Vegas, are a 5 seed.
Yeah. And I don't see why they're just being evaluated differently than everybody else is.
Because their margin of victory isn't extensive, because they don't blow people out. But that's because it's their style of play. It's not because of any of the everybody's style is different.
Yeah. They're and somehow they're getting dinged. By the way, they beat USC by like 40. They Nebraska, they have good non-conference wins. But by the way, teams evolve and get better, and we evaluate teams as the season goes on, and it seems like for some reason, some people are not doing that with St. Mary's. I did want to follow up because we're running out of time, but I wanted to follow up with you. What do you expect out of Gonzaga? Like coming out of, so you set it up beautifully about what this week means for them. So what do you think we're going to see from them? How wounded do you think they are after what happened on Saturday? Will they bounce back and play the way we know they can play?
I believe in Ryan Nembhard will, yes. And if they hit their mark and they just play hard and they play the defense and they do the things that Mark Few's asking them to do, this team will be fine this week. This is a four-alarm fire sense of urgency needs to be played with. Not from a standpoint of are they going to make the tournament or not. Gonzaga's making the tournament. But it's okay. How do we want to set ourselves up for that tournament? And what kind of energy level are we going to bring?
And I do think we do have, the two of us, we have some credibility on this topic, because I guarantee you, in the history of network television, no two people have done more Gonzaga games than the two of us. We have seen them more than anybody. And
Yes.
It's true. And as a final thought, Sean, I can't wait. I mean, this is a fascinating week to really answer some of those questions before we go to Vegas for the conference championship. Final thought. You and I heard a lot of really nice things about Randy Bennett in this episode. And we have our two guests, and they both said a lot about Randy. One outsider, one player who's played for him for 5 years. And we didn't have a chance to follow up there. So I wanted to finish. Gary says Hall of Fame. I agree with that, by the way. I think Randy Bennett is a Hall of Fame basketball coach. But focusing just on this year, I did walk out of the kennel on Saturday thinking, gosh dang, we've heard these names tossed around. Pat Kelsey, what he's done in Louisville. Other guys, there are a lot of good candidates for National Coach of the Year. I'm not so sure Randy Bennett can't be the National Coach of the Year in college basketball. What do you think?
When you look at what Randy Bennett has done here, and here would be my statement of why I believe Randy Bennett should be legitimately considered for National Coach of the Year. They're 15-1 in conference play. They just swept the Gonzaga Bulldogs for the first time ever under Randy Bennett. He won back-to-back years inside the kennel. Amazing. They lost 3 starters at a small school that doesn't have an extensive, $20 million NIL budget. He went out and recruited a top 100 freshman. He went out and took a transfer that was sitting on the bench at Arizona, not getting any minutes. And he's got 11 double-doubles on the season now. Mikey Lewis has starred in both those games. He took a former Division III player from Pomona Pitzer, and he played him for 40 minutes in the kennel. And the guy was making big shots. Randy Bennett is an elite-level coach. He has been an elite-level coach for a long period of time. But this might be his finest coaching he has ever done, from roster reconstruction, because he wasn't expecting those 2 guys to leave. Roster reconstruction, to mentally having this team ready to be what they've been and to accomplish what they've done. But unbelievable what Randy Bennett has done this year.
Very well said. I'm glad I asked you, because I do believe that. I mean, this guy's amazing, and he's still not full. You and I appreciate him.
And he's grumpy.
He's cranky. He doesn't want to talk to us, even though we've known him forever and ever, and we're his biggest supporters. He still is like, why do I have to talk to you guys? He and Mark Few together have this special thing where they're both cranky and they really truly respect each other. I don't believe that outside of us and those around us, there's a full appreciation for how great this guy is. He's great. And his Gales are WCC conference champions. Wow.
You know, just as important when you look at seeding, not for the conference, but for the NCAA tournament, they can't have a letdown this week.
That's a good point. And they go to LMU and they get Oregon State at home. Now, would you assume they would win those games? Yeah, you would, but those are not gimmies. Those are two good teams. So that's a good way to finish, I think. We've got Gonzaga on the road at Santa Clara, San Francisco, USF going to Corvallis before hosting the Zags. St. Mary's trying to finish off a banner year in conference play. A lot to play for in the final week.
It's going to be a hell of a good week.
Yes, it is. And a bathtub full of great games.
You're the best, partner. We'll do it again next week. And yeah, we'll come up with next week we will have our awards for the season. I think that's great. We'll have some surprise guests. And we'll get you set for what the bracket will be set, and we'll know what we're going to be in store for.
So long. We'll talk to you again next week on Points of the Paint.